Hey, ladies and germs, boys and girls. If you look carefully, you'll notice that Suzi isn't Brent Wheat. And that's because Brent is a double, triple wuss. He said that he got a flu and he's like boogery and coughing and whining, and he's making everybody try to have sympathy for him, which we, of course, have no sympathy for him. Absolutely not whatsoever. So today we basically just decided Suzi and I are going to take over the show. Right, Suzi?
That's right. Cuter and smarter, not Brent.
That's right. Yeah. I thought I was cuter and smarter, but no, you're cuter and smarter. So, hey, but before we attack a bunch of topics here and you see Suzi and I get in a brawl here, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor.
Creedmoor Sports is your destination for all things precision shooting. Whether you're new to the sport, an experienced target shooter, or a die-hard competitive shooter, Creedmoor Sports has what you need to take your game to the next level. Visit creedmoorsports.com. Introducing the 4Patriots Solar Go Fridge, a revolutionary solar-powered fridge on wheels that can protect your food, drinks, and medicine during power outages. This is not an ordinary cooler. The Solar Go Fridge is a refrigerator, freezer, and deep freezer all in one. It can recharge for free in sunlight and even power your phone in a pinch. Plus, its portable design means you can take it with you anywhere, ensuring your essentials stay safe and cool while camping, fishing, and hunting. Right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use the code GUNMAG to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including the amazing Solar Go Fridge. Don't let a power outage catch you off guard. Just go to 4patriots.com and use the code GUNMAG to get 10% off.
Okay, Suzi, I got a topic near and dear to my heart. And when I was editor at American Handgunner magazine, the women would say, why aren't there more articles for women? You know, why aren't there more, concealed carry articles for women? Why don't we have somebody reviewing purse holsters and stuff like that? And so it was a fight that I fought all the time. And I know when you were editor of American Cop, you fought the same fight. I know you had to wrestle with that same thing. But my contention is that it should just be an article about CCW, and it should apply to everybody. Well, what's your thoughts?
It does apply to everybody. All things with regard to self-protection or any of that. It's all the same, whether you're a man or you're a woman, if you're a teenager or an old guy, it doesn't matter, because the training crosses all platforms. It's really easy.
What do we do, though? I mean, if it's like there are women who say, oh, I'm afraid to go to a gun class with men. I only want, a class with women. In other words, how, as an editor or a writer, how do you cover women's issues, but still sort of keep it grounded in the fact that this isn't just for girls, that these are the same tactics and training that apply to anybody who carries a gun. But somehow you have to also talk about gun purses. Oh.
Okay, well, there's enough men out there carrying their merces at this point. But here's the deal. And I know I've said this before 100 times. I don't believe in women-only training simply on its own, that's all you ever attend. And the reason for that is because I am most likely to be rolling around on the ground or getting in the shit with a male, not a woman. And so I want to know the male perspective. And I kind of want that intimidation factor from the man, because it's going to show me that I can handle it.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good point, though, because I know
do both.
Yeah.
Start out with the women's only if you want. You get your girlfriends all together and go to a training class. But don't ignore the general populace classes, because they are meant for everybody. You don't have men only classes. And if you did, that would probably be considered sexist, right? But we'll let women only have classes.
We don't want any of them women in our class, by golly. Well, when I first started going to classes, so that would have been the late 80s, early 90s, a woman in a general class at a gun site or Thunder Ranch or a place like that was rare enough that the men kind of like didn't know how to act. I mean, we were like, hey, little lady, or, but I think what you just said is really, really, really important, because I have seen women's only classes, and like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's how you get somebody there to get their feet wet, well, then so be it. But you said it's good to feel that intimidation, that, that sense of danger that maybe some mean, nasty guy would do.
Sure. Who better to have you behind you? In the police academy, there was one instructor that no matter what, I always knew when he was there, and I don't know why I was intimidated by him, but every time I felt his presence, swing, bing, I could not hit the broadside of a barn. And it was just because I had a mental block with this guy. Captain Jim Collins, thank you, sir.
Actually, you know what? I remember that, and you talking about that. And I think that's a perfect example, though, is it because so that stress that put you under, you were able to work on that and get past it, as I recall.
Eventually. Took me enough times, but yeah, I did get past it.
Yeah, well, you know what? You've always been, quick to face whatever the threat is, right at firsthand. I mean, I used to cover you on calls sometimes. You covered me on calls, and I know I never saw you back down. But I think that maybe there's a generation of shooters, and not just women, men too, maybe, and they're a little afraid to get out in the front and fail and get sweaty and, mess up in front of their friends and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I would say if you're a woman, go ahead and take the women's only class if you want to, but then jump in with both feet.
Sure, because it's that failure that is your learning curve. You know precisely where you need to work on it. If you're only working with women, then you don't have a true understanding of where your shortcomings are. It may be your stature. For me, when I think I was 5'9" and 120 pounds soaking wet when I got out of the academy. That was a distinct disadvantage for me. And I got into weightlifting and really trying to increase my strength. And before you knew it, I was actually, roughhousing, if you will, with prisoners and coming out on top. And it's because I knew that my stature was my huge disadvantage.
That's right. I remember. So just for those of you who are listening, Suzi would periodically come home with a new shiner or broken glasses or something, and she would always say, "Yeah, well, you should see the other guy." But I think the lesson there is you do need to dive right in. I remember at Thunder Ranch. I had a class one time, and there was a guy that weighed about 350 pounds. And okay, I'm sorry. I understand, and I apologize. And if you're offended, that's the way it is. But he was on the ground. We were doing ground fighting. And so you're supposed to get on the ground, shoot your gun, get up from the ground, shoot the gun, run around and stuff. Well, this guy got on the ground and couldn't get back up. He's like rolling around and trying to get back up and stuff. And I remember vividly, Clint walked up to him and he looked at him and he said, I don't really mean to be ugly here, but you need to take your weight into consideration, and maybe this isn't the best way for you to be if you want to survive a gunfight.
Exactly.
And I thought, if somebody said it,
right.
And I think you could say the same thing to women, right? It's like, get out of your comfort zone.
Get out of your comfort zone, but also be aware of your limitations. I mean, I wouldn't take on a guy and go toe to toe with some 6'4", 250-pound behemoth. That's not smart. That's stupid. So I get other people there. Better yet, remember all of this gun stuff. That is your last defense. It is not the go-to thing. So who's to say you can't just simply back down? What are you losing? Are you losing face? No.
And
I'm
that's a good
alive.
lesson.
And, and I haven't had
it's a
my
good
ass
lesson.
kicked. So it's not all about, hey, well, I have this gun in my hand, and so therefore I am invincible. No. Be aware. Pay attention. Actually pay attention to the point where you see it coming, and then you can turn away. I mean, I don't know. What's the right answer here?
Well, actually, that's a perfect segue, because I think, okay, if you're a woman, take the woman's only class. If that's how you need to get your feet wet, I got it. But don't stop there. I mean, I know there's, the women's shooting organizations and all that kind of stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I support it, and I know the industry supports it, and that's if it's a safe zone for you to get into it. But I think what Suzi said was so important, that the world is not a safe zone out there. And so if you're used to going to the range and you've got your pink pistol and you're shooting, with your friends and everybody's having a nice time and everything, well, that's not how it's going to be. And the only way you learn that is if you get your feet wet. And don't forget that. So let's segue into what else I want to talk to you about, Suzi, which is gun school enough?
No.
And I mean, right now, if you tune in YouTube, it's hard to find a shooting show that isn't some demon of darkness, all worked up guy with a fancy AR-15 and, and all kinds of guns. And they're shooting plates and they're running and gunning and they're talking about stopping power and all. But that's all they do, I mean, that's, as you say, that's a very vertical part of the situation. So is going to a shooting school enough? So when you graduate from advanced handgun section 11 at Joe's shooting school, are you now prepared to defend yourself and your family?
No. Because it's teaching you, for the most part, it's teaching you the mechanics of it. If this, then that. And everything can be very choreographed. Okay, take 3 shots in 2 seconds from this distance. It can become very mechanical. And in fact, I think there were studies that showed, certainly I think at San Diego PD, that's why one of the reasons we started the officer safety block was not only were we, getting killed left and right, but what was happening is you got so ingrained in take 2 shots in this much time, and then everybody would be so fast to go back to the holster.
Yeah.
Except
I remember
you missed.
that.
You missed.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So a lot of that is, it just becomes repetition. And it's not a real world use of it. Defensive tactics also, again, I'm kind of going back to the academy. Everything that you learned as far as hands-on, grappling, whatever, was done at half speed. I don't know too many people that are going to put their arm out like that and hold it there so I can do an armbar takedown. Doesn't work. So it's really not until you get that adrenaline dump that you realize if it works or if it doesn't work, or maybe it works for that guy over there because he applies it better than you. I mean, there has to be a level of reality inserted somewhere. But no, shooting schools is not the only answer, because you have to be able to read what's going on around you. And that doesn't always happen in a school.
Well, we used to have something called the use of force continuum, and I know it's still in effect with agencies. And for those of you who don't know that, what that means is that if you've got a little old lady who doesn't want to have the traffic ticket and sign it, well, you don't take your nightstick out and thump her with it, right? So, maybe the first step on your use of force.
Sometimes you do.
I know. Well, sometimes you want to. It's true, but the first step on the use of force continuum might be, a firmly worded, "Ma'am, you have to sign this." And if that works, great. but maybe now you have another guy and you have a gang member and you're giving him a mechanical violation and he flips you off and rolls up the window and tries to drive off. Well, obviously you have to go to the next, 1 or 2 or 5 steps higher in the use of force continuum. And so it could be nightsticks, it could be laying hands on people, it could be anything. Cover units are there. Ultimately, the final period on all use of force continuum would be a use of a firearm. And I think that's what Suzi and I were talking about. And that was my main concern having to do with shooting schools, is that people who haven't been exposed to training, like on a police department or maybe some military training, but the people who just buy a gun and they go to shooting school and they take a basic class and now they think they're ready and now they're carrying concealed and they're in the mall and something happens. But what they've missed, though, was Suzi said something about that a minute ago, is that you have to have that situational awareness. And so, watching who's there, watching who's a suspect or not. Is it dark? Is the parking lot crowded? What are the suspicious signs that you see? What's your gut say? Why is that flashing red light over there? How do I leave here in case I have to run out with my family? All of that stuff makes up 99% of what I'm going to call the civilian use of force continuum. In other words, Suzi and I were talking before the show, and that, maybe the very smartest thing you need to learn is to leave.
Well, is to look at what is happening. For instance, police will often be accused of, in their normal day-to-day life, of, why aren't you looking at me while I'm talking to you? Well, it's because you get so accustomed to looking through around somebody that you might be dealing with because you're waiting to see what else, is the boogeyman going to come in? What's happening? Or in a very real situation, just in general, say you're out with each other or your kid or whatever, and you suddenly see a car, out of control car coming at you. Well, if you aren't paying attention, you're the person then that gets hit by the car because it came in and you just didn't see it. So get into a mindset of, you don't have to necessarily look at somebody in the eye while you're talking to them in public. Now, if you and I are having an intimate dinner, then yes, we would be looking at each other eye to eye and making googly noises.
And she would be watching for me for threats. Yeah.
But out in the open, you have to pay attention to what's going on. It's
let's
really
go
that
back.
Simple.
Oh, I agree. I think Jeff Cooper quantified it probably the best that I have ever heard, which he had the color code, the color awareness code. There's a name for it, but basically it was several colors. And so if you're in white situational mode, that means that you're completely unaware of what's going on around you, and so you're asleep. In other words, I could come up behind you and knock you out. You might have no idea I was even there. Yellow means it's what Suzi was talking about. You're aware of your environment. You're aware of what's going on around you. You see the guys walking there. You see the cars driving on the street. You see the dog across the street. You're aware, and you can be in yellow mode every waking moment that you have. And so that's how I always am. That's how Suzi always is. You're always aware of what's going on around you and stuff. And then orange means there's a threat, like you see, like Suzi said, hey, that car's coming really fast. What should we do? Is that a problem? Why did that guy just cross the street over to our side where we're walking down the street? And see, this is a lot of stuff. They don't teach you this in the shooting schools. They teach you how to run your gun and how to shoot and everything, but they don't teach you all this other stuff. So if something's red, that means, okay, this is a threat. I have to move on this. I know as police officers, you play that constantly. I mean, you're always go from yellow, orange, red, orange, yellow. In any situation that you're in, and as a non-swarm person who has a gun and is responsible, you need to be able to do that too in your daily life. And I don't think they teach that enough. Suzi, what do you think?
I don't, but they can. Here's a double dog dare ya. These schools should start bringing in some of that training. I don't know, how expensive is it to get FATS simulators? What is FATS? Firearms training simulators. Get something like that going. Or if you're doing a shoot house, have it be something that perhaps more than just I'm clearing the house with a gun. I might be going into a house where, a fight breaks out. Well, I'm not going to bring my gun out there, but what would I do? Would I turn and walk away? Would I try and intervene? I don't know. I don't know logistically if that's a doable proposition for a gun school, but certainly there are all kinds of other methods of defending yourself that are available out there. Or you could go to some of these seminars where they teach women, to be aware and don't be a rape victim, those kinds of things. But it is definitely more than just standing on a range at different distances and marksmanship. You have to put movement. You have to put everything into play, and movement as in many, many steps. Moving back very fast, moving to the side very fast. And I understand that if you're in a class, your limitations of how much you can move will come into play. But then go home and apply it somewhere else.
Well, I think there are a lot of schools, Gun Sight, for instance, and I think they are breaking out of that parameter of we're a square range and we shoot down range all day. I know in the academy we used to do role playing. You remember, which is very rarely involve going to guns, hardly ever. Usually
Sure.
it was you're in a situation and it becomes confrontational, and they teach you how to de-escalate and how to deal with it and how to prevent it and how to avoid it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I wanted us to talk about today was the fact that don't stop at wondering what's the miracle bullet and should I buy a Glock or not? I mean, yeah, okay, that's important. You should think about that. But really, what you need to think about is how do I avoid the fight? How do I avoid the threat? And, what can I do to protect my family? So I have one more thing I want to talk about. You ready?
No.
Here we go. What was the funnest hunt you've ever been on?
This is an unfair question because you have sent me on a lot of hunts and they all have been extremely fun, and the people I meet have been extraordinary.
If you had to distill it though, like what, like
no,
no. No.
This is why we're in separate rooms.
That's right.
We're gonna have a fight now. I have pick a few. One.
Because I have a few hunts that I've been on where it's like, okay, that's the story I always tell. That particular one. So I have one in mind for you, but
you're a better storyteller than I am. And you know that.
No, well, then I'm going to throw you down on this one, and we'll end this on a positive note. We were in Africa, in Namibia, I think, and Suzi was the hunter. I was along because they needed to have a pretty face, and so I was spotting and doing the laser rangefinder and that kind of stuff. So Suzi was on a zebra stalk and hunt, and so but I have to say Dave. This was about.
We had Dave with us too.
Yeah, Dave Anderson was with us.
Because Dave joined in too.
Yeah, and what it ended up being, and that's why it sticks in my mind so much, and people who aren't hunters are going to be mortified, and they're going to tear their hair and leave fleeing from the room, rending their clothing. But it was a huge amount of fun, is that basically Suzi got into a running gunfight with this damn zebra, and it was like made out of iron. And so it was like, shoot. The zebra keeps flipping us off and running, and she's hitting it. And then finally, Dave Anderson was there with us. And I think you or I or one of us said, Dave, shoot the zebra, so we can end this. And so we chased this thing, and everyone's yelling and everything. And the PH is going, shoot it. And so finally, when it was all done and it was down, and we were all like going, I thought, That's what coming to Africa is for, because that doesn't normally happen on a Missouri white-tailed doe hunt, huh?
No.
Yeah. I
It
do
was fun.
remember, though.
But then you stuck the camera in my face because you were filming everything that we were doing. And you stuck the camera in my face and you said something to the effect of, well, how was that? And you think I'm just going to like unleash all of this excitement on you. And I think I said something to the effect of, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
And I was just
exactly.
stone cold.
I was like, I put the microphone in her face. I said, Susie, you just had a running gun battle with a zebra. And it was like 10 shots. And we were zooming around in the truck. And, it was exciting. And now everybody's high-fiving. And she was sitting kind of looking at the zebra with like a dazed look on her face almost. And I said, so how was it? And she went, fine. And I have that on the video. So
right.
All right.
Well, look. And there's eye roll. And I think I asked you, what am I supposed to say?
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, what am I supposed to say on this?
Feed me my line.
Cut on to the next one. So, hey, you know what? I had a lot of fun taking over this show from Brent. And since he's a wuss face and, wimped out on us on this one, then I'll tell you what kind of a man he is, by golly. He didn't we were talking about women being tenacious and engaging and getting into class. But first thing he did was call me up and say, would you take the show, please? Because I have a runny nose and I don't feel good, So if you liked us better than having Brent on the show, make sure you make a comment that says, yes, please bring Susie back because she's way more fun than Brent is.
Text star ...
That's
you can
right.
make money off of this.
All right, you guys. Hey, this was a lot of fun. Hopefully Brent will be sick again soon and we will take the show over again. So until we see you the next time, remember the 4 firearm safety rules and take a new shooter shooting if you would. Thanks, Susie.
Bye. See you later.